bannange bintu bikolera ddala banne obugayaavu kibi omanyi obugayaavu bukuza muti bannange weebale Dangote bannange omponyeza omanyi ebintu byange bingi byowonyeza okubbibwa nzizeyo mu URA mbalage nti njirina.
Okubeera ne tini namba kikuyamba mu bintu bingi nnyo okugeza mu kusuubula n'okusuubuza eby'emiguzi mu Uganda ne wabweru wa Uganda, okuddizibwa ensimbi okuva ku misolo gy'ozosasula, okufuna looni mu banka ez'enjawulo, okufuna layisinsi okuva mu government agencies zonna, okuwandiisa emmotoka yo n'okugula oba okutunda ettaka.
URA tukulaakulanyize wamu Uganda.
The new and simple eFreeze mobile app.
Yeah, good morning, viewers. Welcome once again to today's webinar. The topic today is going to be customs amendments for the financial year 2024-2025. The idea of this discussion is to see how tax can support industrialization of our economy. And with me, I have a team of panelists with a wealth of experience who are going to discuss more on the subject that is going to be at hand. For starters, Brian Kiza is my name, Customs Officer in Trade. And I would also want my panelists to introduce themselves and just a brief remark or two into this subject before we go into the detail. So I'll begin with Irene and Jude.
Good morning, viewers. My name is Irene Nzima, and as he has put it, we are here to discuss the tax policy amendments for this financial year 2024-2025, and we are glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jude Ochieng. I'm Supervisor Tariff. With you this morning, I will discuss with my colleagues here a little bit about the amendments that affect our operations in customs. These amendments normally are to cure certain inherent challenges we face to improve our collection, but largely is to align to our National Development Plan. As indicated, you know, Uganda intends to transform from a peasant economy to a modern economy in the next 30 years, in accordance with the 2020, 2021, 2024, 2025 NDP3. And we have had a number of amendments this financial year that affects our operations, and these amendments to our common external tariff, our amendments to our East African Customs Management Act, specifically the 5th schedule. We have had certain amendments to our duty remission scheme, which is an incentive scheme availed to our industry, as well as certain stays of application that are designed to enhance or foster competitiveness of our local industry.
Okay, thank you very much, Jude, for that insight. As Jude has said, the discussion is looking at how we can support development, especially through the industrial sector, and see how industrial sector can increase its contribution to our GDP. And then also, at this point, we are going to now dive into the particular areas in these amendments, like stages of application, dropped ones, new remissions, old remissions. And at this point, I'll begin with Irene. Irene is going to talk about new stages of application in this financial year, 2024-2025, and probably give us an insight of how these new stages are going to help the industrial sector be able to reduce their cost of business and eventually be able to continue to contribute to growth of our economy, because at the end of the day, that is the end game of tax policies like this. So Irene, can you give us talk about the new stages of application this financial year?
Thank you so much, Brian. Maybe before we dive into the new stays, probably we need to explain what those stays are and their intention. So the stage of application, it is more of like an incentive where countries, ESC partner states, they agree to deviate from the rates that are in the common external tariff, or which we could call the tariff book. They could deviate to maybe have tariffs which are higher or lower, so that then they can be able to protect some of their industries, also maybe to promote industrialization, basically protect the local industries, the manufacturers, so that then they have a competitive market where they can be able to sell their produce after. So some of those that we are going to talk about, there are those where tariff rates have been increased, there are those where tariff rates have been lowered for the reasons or the justifications I've already explained. And from there, let's go through the new stays that have been put across for this new financial year. And the very first one, we have postpartum mesh pants, basically for medical purposes, which are used by ladies after birth. And these mesh pants help them during the recovery period after birth. And the import duty has been reduced from 25% to nil, so that then they can be able to, when they give birth, they are able to go through the recovery process quickly, so that then we reduce on the mortality rate. So we have also the spades and shovels, where the country felt prudent to have import duty increased from 10% to 35%, because we have industries most especially industrial parks that are producing the same, so that then they can also have market where they can be able to sell the same in Uganda. Then we also have hand tools, those which are used in agriculture, horticulture, and in our forests. For example, the trowels, the steel floats. Basically, import duty has also been increased from 10% to 35%, because we have some companies that are producing the same, most especially industrial parks, so that then they can be able also to have market to sell the same. Then we have sealants, silicone sealant, where import duty has also been increased from 25% to 35%. And the justification is that we have manufacturers who are doing the same, and they are able, with the increment, we are able to, Uganda as a country is able to protect their industrialization, so that they can have market after producing the same. Then we have printed oil pouches and cell tapes, where import duty has also been increased from 25% to 35%, because we have manufacturers, for example, those in printing sector, in paper industries, they are producing these same cell tapes and these plastic oil pouches. So the rationale behind the increment is to be able to protect the same, so that then we have import substitution. Then we have articles of household, basically kitchen items. We have saucepans, frying pans, pressure cookers, and many more, where import duty has also been increased from 25% to 35%. Specifically for that HS code 732393, all those basically articles that fall under there, increment from 25 to 35. Basically, we also have manufacturers, quite so many around, who are also doing the same. They're producing the same, so the country felt it prudent to have the same increased, so that then they have also market where they can sell their products. Then we have also articles of iron and steel. Basically, these are bucket handles that are made up of steel, where we have import duty that has also been increased from 25% to 35%, where we also have industries that are producing the same, and the rationale behind it is protection, and also have market for their products. We have also the printing ink. Printing ink, where import duty has also been increased from 10% to 25% to also promote the local industrialization. Then we have glazers. Basically, this is more like a sealant that is usually used on door frames to fix maybe if there are holes in between the door frames. And import duty has been increased from 25% to 35% because this is a finished product, and 96% of the local raw materials are basically available to be able to produce this sealant. So if we have the manufacturers who are doing the same, then there might be no reason for us to import the same. So that is why the import duty has been increased from 25% to 35%. Then we also have other items like pipes, roller brushes, hammers, hand saws, where import duty has also been increased from 25% to 35%, to also be able to promote the local industries that are producing the same. Then we have motor vehicles, basically transport vehicles, whose gross weight exceeds 20 tons, where import duty has been increased from 25% to 10%. Initially, the previous financial year, we had them at 0%, but it has now been put to 10% because we are also trying to make sure that we have import substitution, and also we have assemblers of the same, so that then they have market to be able to sell the same. Then we also have nails. We have pins, drawing pins, corrugated nail staples of 73.17, where import duty is now applicable at both ad valorem and specific rates of 35% or USD 300 per metric ton, whichever is higher for this financial year. So then we also have iron or steel. Basically, these are squarers that we use to clean our utensils, where import duty has been increased from 25% to 35% because the region thought it prudent, after doing statistics, that we have enough capacity in the region, and therefore we shouldn't have imports from outside. Instead, we should be able to utilize what we have in the region, and they thought it prudent to be able to increase the import duty from 25% to 35%. Then we also have toothbrushes, where import duty has been increased from 25% to 35% because we have manufacturers here in Uganda who also procure raw materials to be able to assemble or manufacture those toothbrushes, and therefore the country thought it prudent to increase the duty rate to 35%, so that then we have protection of those companies who are producing the same. So basically, those are the new stays of application that we have apparently for this financial year. And then we have the continuing stays, because initially when I was beginning, I said these stays usually applicable for a year, but where an ESC partner state finds it prudent that they still need these stays, then they are able to renew the same, and they continue to be applicable until when they feel maybe they have enough capacity, and then they are dropped. So let's now go through the continuing stays. These ones, we had them the last financial year and even other previous financial years, and we are still implementing the same for this new financial year. We have screws, nuts, rivets, hinges, where initially we had them at 10%, and we had an increment even last financial year to increase them from different rates of 10%, 25% to 35%. Then we also have starches, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 25% instead of 10%. We have baby diapers, which were also increased, and we've had this also the last financial year, increment from 25% to 35%. We have aluminium bars, as well as aluminium tubes and pipes, where import duty was increased from 25% to 35%. Then we also have the PVC trunkings, also the builders ware, basically of plastic material, where import duty is also applicable at 35% instead of 25%. Then we also have surgical and other gloves, also examination gloves, where import duty is now applicable at a rate of 10% instead of 0%. We also have brakes. Those are parts of motorcycles, and also brake shoes under the HS code 841794, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 25% instead of 10%. Then we also have exempted goods, where some ESC partner states found it prudent that there are those goods which are for implementation of special projects, and they are considered under special operating framework, where the government of Uganda is able to advise on those special projects, and then we're able to facilitate through giving them exemptions, especially on import duty. So we also have those items which are imported by those special projects, and those special projects are being recommended by the Ministry of Finance. Then we also have textiles as well as garments, where Uganda was granted a stay of application of the CET rate to a rate of 35%. We also have crude palm oil, where the rate was increased from 0% to 10%. We have non-alcoholic beer, or what we call ready-to-drink juices, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 60% instead of 35%. Then we have gumboot linings, where Uganda was given a stay of the CET rate to apply a duty rate of 35%. We have transformers, where import duty is still applicable at a rate of 25% instead of 0%, because we have local assemblers who are assembling these transformers, and therefore they need to be protected so that then they can be able to sell on the local market. We also have printed polymers of styrene, basically printed labels, plastic labels, where we have import duty applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. We have beverages, where import duty is at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. Then we have self-adhesive plates, sheets, films, which are made of plastic material, where Uganda was also given a stay to 35%. Then we also have polymers of propylene, and which are also made up of plastic material, where import duty is also right now applicable at a rate of 35%. We also have mobile phones, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 10% instead of 0%, because we also have local assemblers of the same, And Uganda thought it prudent to be able to protect the local assemblers so that they also have a market where they can sell the mobile phones. We also have worn items of clothing and their articles under those different HS codes where import duty is applicable at 35%. We have road tractors for semi-trailers. Those ones, import duty is applicable at a rate of 0 to be able to promote our transport sector. We have wheelbarrows where import duty is applicable at a rate of 25% apparently. Then we also have honey under that HS code where import duty is applicable at a rate of 60% because the country has sufficient capacity to produce honey, and therefore the 60% rate is a protection enough for the local industries. We also have tiles where import duty is also applicable at a rate of 35%. Then we also have television sets where import duty is applicable at a rate of 36% instead of 25%. We have toys which when imported are brought in at a duty rate of 35% import duty instead of 25%. We also have frozen meats of different chicken, bovine animal meat, of sheep, where import duty right now is applicable at a rate of 60% instead of 35%. We have peanut butter, where the import duty rate is applicable at a rate of 60% instead of 35%. Then we have mechanically deboned chicken paste, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 60% instead of 35%. And because we have those companies who are importing the same, they import the raw material to make the same, and therefore Uganda as a country found it prudent to be able to also support the local manufacturers. We also have paper and paperboard of all different kinds, whether it is printed or not, and the rate is at 36%. We have lithium batteries, where Uganda was granted a stay to 0% instead of 25% because it is due to the fact that we don't have many manufacturers of lithium batteries, and therefore the import duty to be put at 0% is more of an incentive to have the local manufacturers of the same. We have cocoa, where import duty is applicable at 35%. Then we have other insecticides which are put up for retail sale, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. Then we have different mixtures which are basically used in preparations for confectionery, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. We have tarpaulins, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. We also have ceramic toilet seats, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. Then we have mama kits, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 0% instead of 25%, to be able to promote the health sector and also support mothers in labor. Then we have tires of rubber under 1140, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 10% for the kinds of motorcycles, the ones which are used on motorcycles. Then we also have wires of iron or non-alloy steel, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 36% instead of 10%. We also have flat-rolled products made up of steel, where import duty is applicable at both ad valorem and specific rates of 25% or USD 200 per metric ton. Then we also have flat-rolled products of iron or non-alloy steel, the sheets, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 36%. We also have penstock pipes. These ones are used basically in hydroelectric power projects, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 0% instead of 25%. And they are also catered for under VAT, and they are exempted from VAT. We also have containers for gas, basically the gas cylinders, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 0% for this year. Then we have barley, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 10% instead of 25%. We have lubricants, basically in liquid form, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 36% instead of 25%. We also have the lubricants, where import duty is also at a rate of 36% instead of 25%. We have blankets and also other steel articles, where import duty is applicable at 35% for blankets. And then for steel articles, import duty is applicable at both ad valorem and specific rates of 25% or 350 per metric ton. We also have other steel articles under those different subheadings, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 36%. Then ballpoint pens, the pens that we use in writing, and import duty to them is applicable at a rate of 60% instead of 25%. We also have electric accumulators, those are the batteries, where import duty is also applicable at a rate of 35% instead of 25%. We also have coated electrodes as well as safety matches, where import duty is applicable at both specific and ad valorem rates. Then we have cash registers, where Uganda was granted a stay from 10% to 0%, as well as on toughened and laminated safety glass, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 25% for this year. As we continue, we also have paper of different make, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 25% instead of 10% for this year. Then we have side mirrors, back mirrors, indicators, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 25% instead of 10%. Then we have stoves, energy saving stoves, and to these ones import duty was reduced from 25%, and we now apply a duty rate of 10% to be able to promote the energy sector. Then we also have wires, we have steel, we have other organic surface active agents, and those are applicable at different rates, as we may see. We also have fruits, basically other agricultural produce, the cabbages, the broccoli, where import duty is applicable at a rate of 36%, because Uganda within the region feels it has enough sufficient capacity, and therefore we should seem to be able to promote the agricultural sector. we may now continue. We have those stays that were implemented last financial year, which were dropped, which we are not going to implement this financial year. And one of them, we have electric and hybrid vehicles. Initially, the last financial year, we had them at import duty rate of 0%. But then for this new financial year, the duty rate was reinstated, and we now apply them at the same duty rate of 25%. Then we also had electric motorcycles last financial year, and these ones were also reinstated back to 25% for purposes of promoting the local assemblers of motorcycles. Then we also had another one that was dropped on motor vehicles for transportation of goods whose gross vehicle exceeds 5 tons but does not exceed 20 tons. And the import duty was also reinstated to 25% instead of 10% that we implemented last financial year. Then we also have other articles of plastic, basically the compositing dry toilets. Last financial year, we implemented them at 10%, but then going forward with this financial year, they were reinstated back to 25%. Thank you so much for listening in, and thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Irene. That was very informative, and from what at least we pick from Irene's submission is that you see tax rates increasing from maybe 10 to 35%, but the idea is to protect local manufacturers. So it's a good thing when tax rates are increasing on finished products which are being imported. So for people who are listening in, who are interested in engaging into the manufacturing sector, those are areas you can take advantage of because the law is trying to make sure that your products locally produced are competitive. Okay, and we have a few questions that are coming in. I would want to answer them as we carry on. So Jude, before we move on, maybe let's answer these questions. One of them is from an anonymous attendee. What does stay of application mean in simple English? I didn't know that we're using hard English. So can we explain this in simple English for the viewer out there? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brian.
Sure.
Now, a stay of application is basically you leave the rate that we have in the CET book or tariff book, and then you apply either another rate higher than what you have in the tariff book, or the rate that is lower than the one in the tariff book. So the rationale is not, basically it is not just the country itself that decides, but it's the Council of Ministers who sit and then they agree as the EAC partner states that probably maybe Uganda is going to have a stay. It will not implement the tariff book rate, which is in the book, but it will implement another rate which is either higher or lower for purposes of maybe protection of the local industries, or maybe basically for protection purposes. Maybe they feel they don't have enough capacity and they feel they want to protect those local industries. So the EAC partner states will agree that now Uganda will not apply that rate in the CET book, but rather will either use another rate that is higher or lower. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. By what she means by CET is the law or the legal framework that determines import duty rates on imports. Okay. There's another question from a gentleman called Wasabate, and they're saying, where can we access this information?
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, stays of application are a legal instrument that is published in what is called the East African Community Gazette notices. It's a public document. If you went to Google and you simply typed the ESC Legal Gazette for June 30th, you should be able to obtain this document. It's also going to be uploaded on our website of URA. But just to add that ESC uses a common external tariff. A common external tariff means we use the same rates across all partner states of the ESC. And the stay of application is an instrument that allows individual countries with different interests to vary that common external tariff. So we know that in the whole ESC, for example, rate is 25%. But a country has a unique challenge, say Uganda or Burundi. It will go back to the ESC and say that whereas we are in this marriage together, we tend to opt out in this particular option. So that is what eventually becomes a stay of application.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Jude. At least now you know where to find this information. So we're going to go to our next item, and in this case, we would want to hear from Jude in regards to new remissions, old remissions, and CET considerations. So Jude, please, you can take us through.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to speak a little bit on remissions, Brian. Remission is for lack of another word, is basically a reduction of duty. That reduce duty on certain goods you're going to use to produce other goods. So it's an incentive scheme for industries that is provided for under Section 140 or Section 140 of our Customs Management Act, which allows the Council of Ministers to grant remission on goods for production of other goods. And these goods commonly are raw materials as well as packaging materials. So it's tailored for manufacturers. And it's designed to protect manufacturers from competition, to incentivize manufacturing in the countries, as well as promote social welfare. So you have certain goods that promote social welfare, which are going to be incentivized to manufacture, such that it is cheap and affordable by all partner states. So we normally have two types of remissions, regional and country. And these are the remissions that Uganda has been granted. These are the new ones this year, meaning that these did not exist until this financial year and were approved. So amongst them, the first one we have are what we call preparations of a kind used for coating welding electrodes. In the business language, they call it welding flux. So this is the cocoa butter, substitutes. Then you may have barleys, certain nuts, and certain fruit purees. So this remission is to a rate of 10% and 0%, being that those raw materials as indicated, whose rates are 35% or 25% are remitted to 10%, and those whose import duty rates are 10% are remitted to 0%. The next new remission we have this financial year is a remission for manufacturers of aluminium foil or aluminium packaging. This is a remission available on aluminium jumbo rolls. They bring it here. It's quite bulky. They cut it, they form it, and produce smaller pieces of packaging material, packaging foils that most times when you go to the restaurant, sometimes they pack in goods for you. And this remission is from a rate of 10% to 0%. Then we have a remission designed for manufacturers of school articles. In this case, these are school dusters. They bring in those materials and put them together, and the remission rate is to 0%. Then the next new remission is for manufacturers of PPR pipes. In most of our homes now, we stopped using the old iron pipes because of the challenge there was of them rusting. And I've since moved into the plastic pipes, commonly called PPR pipes. And we have a number of manufacturers who make these here. But to make piping for plumbing, you need certain elements like joints, like T's that are normally used to join the piping. Now this remission is to allow the importation of those certain small, hard to mold components for people who are making the pipes, such that the pipes will be competitive. Because the other people who import the pipes would ordinarily import it with certain, what we call the fittings of those pipes. So this remission is designed for that industry, and it's at a rate of 10%. Then we have a new remission for people who produce mosquito repellents. It's a regional remission, meaning that it's available across all the partner states. Malaria is a serious problem, and anything to reduce the cost of fighting malaria is incentivized by government at the moment. So we have this remission. If you intend or you manufacture mosquito repellents, those components, the pouches, the thermoforms, the films that you may need to produce the repellents are under remission to a rate of 0%. Then we have preparations of a kind used in manufacturing of beverages and food of 2106-9020. These are certain prepared preparations that ordinarily you don't find in other parts of the tariff. They are those that are not based on, say baker's ware, based on wheat. They are not really flavors, but they are preparations that are utilized. Some of them are artificial powders that are utilized to produce goods, to produce food or to produce beverages. And these are under remission to 0%, actually from 25 to 0%. That's a small error that could be corrected. Then still, under remission, we have a number of remissions that have existed for some time. Those that government chose to carry on from the previous year because the conditions that require them still exist. And we have, for people who make coolant or tube mill coolant, they import in a organic surface active agent of 340290. Some people call it LABSA in layman's language. And the remission is from 25% to 0%. Then the next one, we have two products. We have primer as well as top color primer or paints. That this is a remission available to manufacturers of corrugated. People who make iron sheets that are painted utilize primer to paint. So they import the coils, they cold roll them, they galvanize them. But in the process of after galvanizing, before you pre-paint you need a primer and you need a color. So this remission is there to reduce that cost. So the remission is from a rate of 10% to 0% on those primers as well as those paints used for coating these iron sheets. Then we have this remission that is available to people who manufacture scholastic materials, in this case pencils. They have certain small components that they bring in at a rate of 0% to complete the production of pencils, like those small aluminum pieces that the rubbers sit on, as well as the erasers. They may use the wood locally here to produce the pencil and the import lead, but you need to complete it, and these are the remissions that are available for them. We have remissions for manufacturers of kitchenware. This is aluminum coils. Most of the kitchenware is made with either stainless steel or aluminum, because these are good heat conductors, but they're also light and durable. And this remission is available to everyone who produces kitchenware from aluminum coils. And these aluminum coils specifically are those of 760611. The remission is from a rate of 25% to 0%. Then we have a remission for manufacturers of lubricants on base oil. Base oil is the primary raw material for producing lubricants, and all types of lubricants, whether in liquid form or in solid state, for example, greases. they use base oil, and this remission is from a rate of 10% to 0%. We also have a remission for manufacturers of metal crown caps. Metal crown caps are basically what closes your solder, the metallic one. That's a metal crown cap. And to produce it in the region, you need certain materials. And these materials are of course, you need the stainless steel steel coil, but that is already at 0%. But you need certain plastic rubber that you put inside. You need to print on it, either the date of expiry or the branding of the item. So you need ink. So you have those items remitted to 0% for producers of metal crown caps. Then we have raw materials for manufacturers of tires and tubes, and they are various, as indicated on row 15, as you can indicate there. They include certain oxides, magnesium, and the remission is to 0%. Steel for manufacturers of tires. You have certain, for manufacturers of paint brushes, they have remissions on filaments that they use for making the brushes, on certain polymers for packing or for molding, and this remission is at a rate of 0%. Then we have steel manufacturers of sandpaper. They have a number of raw materials that have been catered for them for remission this financial year. And these are certain papers as indicated, glues, certain fabrics, as well as bristles. Then we have, yes, when my colleague was speaking about mobile phones, we had, on one hand, we have the import duty of mobile phones moved from 0 to 10%, and we're incentivizing assembly of those local mobile phones locally through a remission scheme at a rate of 0%. So unassembled phones, when imported and the company does local assembly, would come in at a rate of 0%. The rationale behind this is that you need technology transfer. In the production of electronics, the quickest way to learn is through assembly. So you go through a process of assembly before you start molding the different components. So this is the whole reason why government is choosing to have the complete item taxed at a rate of 10% and the unassembled one at a rate of 0%. So that would extend to a number of the electronics as indicated there. We have unassembled bulbs, we have unassembled speakers. All these are remitted to a rate of 0% this financial year. So it's still the same explanation. Then we have mechanically deboned meats or chicken paste. This item, if you recall, my colleague talked about it, is that the rate is 60%. However, it's also a raw material utilized to largely produce sausages. So for that purpose, it is still under also remission. Whereas the rate is 60%, it is remitted to 35% for those who produce sausages. So in people who produce meats, after they have done the cutting, there is what is called offcuts that remain, and some meat that remains on the bone. So they use developed countries, they use technology to get that meat out through blowing, high pressure blowing. So these small pieces is what becomes mechanically deboned chicken paste. Those small pieces are eventually transformed into making sausages. Then we have grease-proof paper, as well as craft paper. This is available under remission for producers of packaging material at a rate of 0% from 10% this financial year. Then we have raw materials for manufacturers of mattresses. We have jacquard material. We have polycotton mattress material. This is under remission to 10% from 25%. Then we have remission for manufacturers of corrugated boxes. This kraft liner paper is one of the major raw materials in production of corrugated boxes. And it's under remission from a rate of 10% to 0% for 1 year for people who produce those boxes. Then we have a general remission on aluminium wire of a width of a width exceeding 7 millimeters, and this is under remission to 0%. This raw material is utilized for many purposes, but one of the purposes is in the production of electric cables. The high armored electric cables, they use certain aluminium wires together with copper wires to back up the ABC or the armored electric cables. We have a remission on plastic films of polyethylene. This is utilized to make a number of packaging materials as well as labels, and this is under remission from 10% to 0%. Then still under unassembled electronics, we have flat irons, we have DVD players, we have blenders, hot water kettles. All these are under remission when imported unassembled at a rate of 0%. Then we have floor fans, if imported unassembled, is under remission to a rate of 10%. So the thinking behind this remission is that someone is going to do assembly here locally. And in the process of assembly locally, they will employ certain people. So that transfer of technology, that employment they create is what justifies the rate being lower than someone who brings in the complete article and simply takes to their shop to sell. Still, it extends to unassembled cookers. We have a remission to 0% on unassembled cookers, the different types of cookers. Then we have a remission available for assemblers of chains, motorcycle chains, bicycle chains, and industrial chains. This remission has been available for close to 5 years, and to date, we have no beneficiaries. So this is an area that anyone listening could be interested in. All machines utilize chains, whether they are mowing machines, whether they are industrial, certain machines, they either use belts or chains, or motorcycles or bicycles. And the process of assembly of these chains is not very difficult. So you bring in the different components, join them together, this would be a market for you or something that would interest you. We have a remission on non-wired glass at a rate of 0%. We have a remission available on raw salt for manufacture of edible salt at a rate of 10% from the CET rate of 35%. We have a remission available for steel blanks. These are blanks that are utilized or transformed through polishing, through the coating for making cutlery. These are spoons and forks. If you bring them in and you can do the coating, the polishing here, you would bring them at a lower rate of 10% instead of the CET rate that is available on them at the moment of 25%. Then we have various lists for production of furniture as indicated in the Gazette. The number of items in the spirit of import substitution that government wants to discourage importation of complete furniture. And they've availed a whole list of items available for remission for production of furniture. That list is in the Gazette and we shall share it. It's a long list, but it's available for manufacturers or assemblers of furniture at various rates, either rates of 10% or rates of 0%, being remissions from 35 and 25% or 10 to 0%. We have umbrella heads for roofing nails. If you grew up in where there was a tin coated house or a house that utilized iron sheets, there were nails that were specifically designed for putting to for roofing those tin coated houses. And these nails have like something like a top to avoid leaking, what they call umbrella heads. Now, this is a small product, but it is a product that is very highly specialized in production. So whereas we can make all other nails, that component is not one that is made by many industries all over the world. So there are few that make and supply everyone who makes roofing nails. And that remission is there to support those people who make roofing nails and need this umbrella or the coating on top to finish the nails. And the remission is from a rate of 25 to 0% this financial year. Then we have a regional remission on high tensile galvanized wire of 70 to 1720. It is utilized for many functions. It's also utilized by people who produce electric cables as well as some other functions, and the rate is from 10 to 0% this financial year. We have a remission that is available at a rate of 0% for aerosol cans. The people who produce, if you produce insecticides, if you produce hairsprays and items of that nature, the aerosol cans of 7310, these are still aerosol cans, would be under remission at a rate of 0% instead of the 10%. Then we have another remission for organic surface active agents to a rate of 10% from 25%. This is utilized by a broad spectrum of industries. What I like to call the chemical and allied industries, the people in paints, the people who make mattresses, the people who make, the chemical products, they utilize most of these. Then you have a remission on lacquers or varnishes of 3208, 90 for people who make aluminium decorative panels, like the one we have in URA, the one we have on the surface of the URA tower. Those panels, there are companies that are producing them locally, as well as those who utilize them to coat the aluminium profiles that you see utilized on windows. So these paints are at a remission of 10% from 25%. We have a remission available for packaging material for coffee. So if you produce coffee locally for our shelves, you have a remission on your packaging materials to a rate of 10% from 25%. Then we have a remission available on zinc-coated coils for production of road rails. These are thick coils of a thickness exceeding 2.5 millimeters, and they are utilized by companies that produce road guardrails in Uganda. So they're not just ordinary coils. Then we have a remission available on what we call food flavors of 330210 for production of food or for people who produce foods or drinks, and the remission is from 10% to 0%. We have a remission on energy saving or on components utilized to produce energy saving stoves as well as unassembled energy saving stoves from 10% to 0%. These are various, and the rationale behind it is purely to promote the environment, because energy for cooking seems to be the biggest driver for environmental degradation, particularly the desire for wood fuel. So anyone who comes up with technologies that would improve usage of fuels by reducing the quantity you need to cook, then there's a remission incentivized by government. Still on organic surface agents, so 3402, 31 and 39 is available. This one specifically for manufacturers of detergents and liquid soap at a rate of 0%. This is liquid soap is one of the items that is produced at a very high quantity in Uganda, specifically by people in the cottage industries. So they import labsa, which is basically those surface agents, and then they produce this. I think this is the biggest cottage industry we have next to, say, bakeries in Uganda.
Sure.
Then we have raw materials and packaging materials for producers of examination and surgical gloves, as indicated there. We also have a remission on glues based on starch and craft paper. We have a remission for manufacturers of mattresses on catalytic preparations. Then we have a remission on springs for production of mattresses. We have a remission available for manufacturers of motorcycle tubes, and this specific remission is for valves. As well as for manufacturers of motorcycle horse brakes or brakes, and the items indicated there, the brake pads, the linings, the housings, as well as glues that put this together. There's a remission to 0% this financial year. So briefly, those are the remissions we have. Brian, we also have another list that is basically remission. It's called Uganda's List of Raw Material. This is a very specific list. It is a country-specific list for remission that Uganda started utilizing when they joined the EAC. When we joined the community, we were at different stages of development, and as such, we could not compete at equal footing. So Uganda took a list of items for which they wanted to incentivize their industry. And it was a very long list. It has been reducing over the years, and right now it is remaining with only 10 items from the over 159 items that used to be under this list. And the reason it keeps reducing is because Uganda's capacity to produce competitively has increased over the years. So this is the list. It has been a running list. It has a number of items. It has certain fruit pulps, like those of orange, apple. It has yeast. It has petroleum jelly in primary forms for producers of cosmetics, as well as people use it for wire drawing. There are companies that use it for wire drawing. Then you have certain papers for production of packaging materials, amongst others.
Okay.
So briefly, those are the remissions.
Before we continue, there are some questions which are coming in. So maybe we can quickly go through them, and then we shall continue to the next item. So this is Ngolobi Alex. They're asking, when do you hope to issue out exemptions on both excise duty and duty remission? Can I read all of them, or we can answer one by one?
I think we can go one by one.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Exemptions on excise duty or amendments to excise duty are basically resident in the Excise Duty Act. We have certain changes that have indeed occurred, or proposed changes that were made to the Excise Duty Act. However, these changes have not been assented to. So as of now, you would say they are still bills or they are proposals. So we can only implement these when the president assents to or signs them into law. So until such a time when the president signs those changes to law, that's when we can be able to share with you those changes in the excise duties that affect, those changes from excise duty that affect customs operations. I think there was a second follow-to question to that. And this was, maybe you could just repeat?
Yeah, when do you hope to issue out exemptions on both excise duty and duty remission?
Okay, the exemptions on duty remissions are actually, that process started. It started in May. It's ongoing. and the number of companies that have applied. So I would encourage all the companies that benefit, that have not applied, to follow suit. Apply these facilities for manufacturers, and it's only relevant to the extent that manufacturers express interest to benefit from these remissions.
Sure. So we have another one from Yusuf, and they're asking, kindly guide us on the duty rates payable for CCTV cameras, metal detectors for security purposes.
Okay, that is a broad question, but I can actually provide guidance on it. CCTV cameras are actually, and metal detectors are exempt supplies, as provided for in our 5th schedule, which is of the Customs Management Act, which is a schedule of exempt items as provided for under section 114. Basically, the items that are exempt are to be imported into the ESC. So the CCTV cameras, the metal detectors, whereas the rates are 25% in the common external tariff, are expressly exempt from taxes as provided for in the 5th schedule.
Okay, Yusuf again is asking, are sewing machines and welding machines still exempted from VAT?
Yes, welding machines, sewing machines are still incentivized in the VAT Act. They still don't attract VAT at importation.
Okay, let me see. Kindly clarify on HSC on how many taxes? How are taxes for imported storage units, memory cards treated? Okay, some of these may not be directly relevant to our business. So I think at this point, let's continue as I sieve out what is relevant. So Jude, you can carry on to the next item.
Okay. So thank you very much, Brian. Amongst the amendments we normally do, in addition to stays of application, duty remission, we normally have amendments to our CET, or the ESC CET, our common external tariff. It's commonly called out there the tariff book.
Sure.
Now these amendments are in line with giving clarity, improving the usage of the same, and giving clarity on it. Perhaps, I don't know whether all colleagues can look at what we have just projected. So this financial year, there are 2 changes that we made to the CET regarding descriptions of texts. So the first one there, perhaps I'll handle them together. These are cans and ends, or these are cans made of steel, iron and steel, as well as cans made of aluminium. So for purposes of clarity, I'll just give an example. For example, the can of Red Bull, the packaging of Red Bull, if we know the product, or canned Coca-Cola. If it is made of aluminium or it's made of steel, it would be under one of the 2 headings. Now, the description of that text was cans and ends for beverages and food. But during implementation, we found out that this description was incorrect, that it put ends here, yet still in the CET under 8309, if the end is metallic, it also covers stoppers, lids, ends made of base metals. And if it is plastic, it would be under 3923. So when you see the terms of the heading of 7310 as well as 7612, it refers to cans. So if you import a can that has its lid there, then you declare it as a can. It will not be a lid. But if you imported a lid alone, you will not put it here. Yet this seemed to insinuate that if you imported a lid alone, you'd still classify it under 7329. So this is a technical amendment to cause correctness to the subheading text. And the new text will now read cans for beverages and food. And this would mean that would keep the integrity of the ends that are classifiable under another heading, 8309 or 3923, intact. The next amendments we have were less technical, and the amendments to rates. still to cause alignment to rates in the EAC, as well as to improve implementation. So we have a number of HS codes for which rates types of furniture. These are different types of furniture. Most of them are outdoor furniture, furniture for motor vehicles. So all of them, the rates have been moved to 35% this financial year.